Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we're out by my bog and succulent garden because I thought it might be helpful for you guys to see what these plants look like as they're waking up from their winter dormancy. A lot of times when you open gardens like these in the spring, you may think they're totally dead, so I wanted to show you just how I know that they are alive and take a close look at some of the plants because they're really beautiful. Let's get started. Oh, and after that, we're going to take a look around at our budget tubs as well as my outdoor tubs just to get an idea of how the plants are growing, so stay tuned for that. So at first glance at this garden, you're going to see a lot of what appears to be mostly dead plants, you know, pitchers that are missing their tops. There's a lot of browning, and it just really is a bit underwhelming at this point in the season until you start looking way closer. Now this plant in the middle in particular, you'll notice has a lot of the flower stalks, and I am ridiculously geeked about this because this is only the second season with this bog garden and I've never flowered a lot of these plants before. And you can see a particularly large flower spike right there, and that is just without a doubt exciting. So when I'm looking at these plants to see if they're still alive, obviously those flower spikes are a dead giveaway. But if we look even closely at this one, if you look way down at the bottom of the plant, you'll see that that rhizome is nice and red and that there's little red shoots coming up, and that is the new pitcher plant leaves. Now some of them look more alive than others. This one is taking a bit more time. But you can really see what I'm talking about on this one. It gets these reddish shoots, which are the new pitchers developing. And pretty much all of the plants are showing this evidence. You see there's more flowers on that one. And so far so good. Now the sundews I was a bit more concerned about, and let me show you why. Now up until just this week, this plant basically looked dead. It had zero growth. It had none of those little offshoots that capture the bugs. It really just was a bit frightening. I thought I had killed all my sundews in this garden. But as we look around, we'll see that there's a spatulata. We'll see that quite a few are starting to come out of dormancy. Now this one here is one I actually transplanted from indoors, but the one that has given me the biggest scare is over in this section. Let's go take a closer look real quick. Now this sundew in particular, I was pretty convinced was totally dead. If I push on it, it's absolutely mush. And I thought that this was a cold tolerant variety. But luckily, because it did so well last season, I think what's happened is it dispersed seeds all in this area. And if we look here, right above my finger, you can see the start of new plants, which really makes me happy, as I was pretty convinced that I had totally killed this plant. Also, as we look around, you can see that my Venus flytraps are really coming out of dormancy. There's tons and tons of new little traps. They're actively eating all sorts of insects, and all in all, when we take a close look at this garden, you can see that it is really waking up. And I can't wait for another month or two to pass to see all these flowers bloom, the new pitchers fill out. I mean, if we look closely at this particular plant, there are just flower stalks everywhere. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 on this plant alone, and that is just super exciting. And it really makes you feel like you're doing something right. So I have a feeling in a couple of weeks or a month or so, this garden is going to be insanely cool. So stay tuned for that. Now, up in the succulent garden, I am having sort of the same scares, or I was. A few weeks ago, everything in this garden, except for the hens and chicks, or sempervivums, was just brown. And I was a bit concerned that nothing was coming back. And there's still a couple of areas in the garden that I'm not sure we're going to get any significant growth. There are little baby plantlets there, but looks kind of rough. But then again, we look at other areas, like this one looked like that. This right here looked like that just a week ago, as did that bright green section and all these red sections, and a lot of this stuff along the sides. So I'm pretty hopeful. Now again, this is a garden that has a long-term plan. This year I hope it fills in a bit more than it did last year, and within a few years I'm hoping it will be just mounding succulents everywhere. But this one's very much a marathon, not a sprint. I could spend the money and buy all the plants and plant it to capacity, but because I don't know a huge amount about succulents, I sort of wanted to see what looked best, what grew best, what thrived, what overwintered the easiest, and make my plant choices based on those experiences rather than just spending a ton of money and possibly not getting the results I want long term. But you can see some of these hens and chicks are really, really cool, and a lot of the plants are doing really well. It seems as though the ice plants are the ones that really struggled the most, which is kind of strange to me because they're the ones with the biggest reputation for being invasive. Anyway, that's how those things are going. Let's go take a look at the bins. Oh, and just to show you, I still have some cleanup to do. You know, I've got like my scissors and pots laying around, but this is what it's looking at like in front of the greenhouse right now. I think it's looking really good. And let's just pivot around and take a look. This side too. I still need to do some more stuff with flowers over on this side, and I think I need to move that bench around. And again, just some cleanup. But I can't wait until all the plants grow in over there, and I just think it's going to be really pretty this year. I'm so excited that I can finally really do the gardening that I want to now that I've had my knee replacement. It's not perfect, and yes, I have to have surgery again, but at least we're getting there. Now over here I'm prepping to make soil for my containers to grow my vegetables. It looks kind of a mess, but the easiest way to really soak this peat is to saturate it and let it sit, so that's what I'm doing. And then I'm waiting on a few supplies to come in to finish that mix. Inside the greenhouse, we'll take a quick peek. Again, it's an absolute mess in here, but chaos makes me happy, I guess. All the plants are growing really, really, really well, both up in my vegetables as well as in my bins. And again, I'm still not done adding plants into all these things, but they're getting there. You can see I really need to clean up my messes, but you know, I've been super busy getting all this stuff done, and once everything is in place, then I'll worry about really getting things cleaned up. As always, thank you guys for your support. Thank you to my patrons who have been really awesome. Thanks to all of you who watch my videos, and stay tuned for the next one. So this is our muck basket tub, and that has that solar pump. And what I've ended up doing is just using the suction cups and affixing it up near the surface of the water. My yard's just too shaded for this to work really well, but at least this way it provides a little bit of movement. The reality is I'm probably going to be changing this out in the near future because I'm pretty disappointed in its performance. But in this tub, you can see the plants have adjusted well. I did go around to all these floating baskets and add a top dressing, and that top dressing is just aquatic soil, or aquatic, Estes aquatic media or whatever. And the only reason I did that is because the soil itself is so soft when waterlogged that it wasn't providing enough structure for the plants. And I noticed a lot of them were getting tilty and tippy. You can see it as well. It was especially prevalent in this one. With this red plant, I really want that to be able to bush and grow and become big and beautiful. So I wanted it to have a little more structural support. So adding that essentially fine gravel to it just gives it more support so that it can root easier and grow taller without flopping over. You can see little blue flowers. That's exciting. And then over at our waterfall tub, I did the same thing. Just added top dressing to that Laguna floating pot. And then I added it to my other pots as well as this elephant ear just so that they all matched. I can't tell you guys how happy I am with this particular tub. The sound it's providing, it just adds so much enrichment to things when I'm sitting out on my deck. I absolutely love it. You can hear it inside the house when the windows are open for the catio. And this one, while it was a bit more expensive just because I bought this plant, which was $12, which was pretty expensive for this project, and added that waterfall feature, it is absolutely my favorite tub so far this year out of all of my tubs. And I can't wait to watch it grow in and start to flower. This plant here, this Cardinal Plant, has already started putting on size, and you can see that my creeping Jenny that I got from the normal garden section, not the aquatic section, is doing just fine. Let's go look in the other outdoor tubs. Now I have my first flowers out here. It's not anything earth-shattering, it's just the start of the water hyacinth flowers. But there's 2 of them. And, you know, these should flower all season long. You can see there's pretty staggering growth of the aquatic mint. The creeping Jenny is growing across the water surface. All of my lilies are throwing out tons of pads, even though it's still a bit cold for them. And because it's a little bit chilly, you can see that the pads are still really small. Now, in another week or 2, I'll go through and fertilize again, and that should really jumpstart their growth, as well as the size of the pads. In the big tub, we have a lot more pads because there's a lot more lilies. So far, no more signs of dragonfly larvae. I've been doing a sweep every day to keep an eye. I think that one I found was similar to ones I've had in the past where you get 1 or 2 a season and it's no big deal, unlike last year where I had, you know, dozens. I did add some top dressing to some of these pots as well, just because I was trying to use up the bag of soil. I still want to add more plants to these long, low tubs, but I'm just waiting for my garden center to have them in. You can see here as well, the water mint is going bonkers, and everything's looking really good.